Listen, I need to tell you something about humans that nobody warned me about at the academy. Sure, they mentioned Earth was a Class 12 death world. Yeah, they showed us the gravity ratings, the atmospheric toxicity levels, the predator density charts, but what they did not mention, what they conveniently left out of every single briefing, was that humans are absolutely, positively, catastrophically insane. My name is Velk, and I am a tactical observer for the Galactic Combat Institute. That is a fancy way of saying I watch people fight and take notes. 17 years I have been doing this job. 17 years of watching the finest warriors from across the galaxy train, compete, and occasionally hospitalize each other. I have seen Kralaxian berserkers tear through battle simulations. I have watched the Narration psionics bend reality itself during combat exercises. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for Maya Reeves. The day she arrived at Training Complex Theta 9, I was reviewing footage from the morning exercises. Boring stuff really, a group of Vixorian shock troopers running through standard obstacle courses, showing off their enhanced musculature and redundant organ systems like peacocks with too many hearts. Then she walked into my peripheral vision. Human, female, approximately 1.7 meters tall, which is laughably small by galactic standards. She had dark skin, darker hair pulled back in something humans call a ponytail, and the kind of eyes that suggested she was measuring every single thing in the room for structural weaknesses. She was assigned to Strike Team Delta 7, which already had 4 members. Let me introduce you to these absolute paragons of interstellar combat excellence, because trust me, you will want to remember their names for what comes later. First, there was Krogath. Big guy, even by Vixorian standards. 3 meters of scaled muscle and unearned confidence. He had won 47 sanctioned combat tournaments across 12 systems. His favorite hobby, aside from flexing, was reminding everyone about those 47 tournaments, loudly, frequently. Second, Sessaquil, Aviran. Think bird person, but the kind of bird that thinks its species invented flight and therefore superiority. Lightning-fast reflexes, hollow bones, an ego that could be seen from orbit. Third, Jackson Maya. Human, actually, but the kind who spent so much time trying to impress aliens that he forgot where he came from. Came from some high-gravity colony world, had military training, loved explaining things nobody asked about. Fourth, Zilla. Aquarian, amphibious, multi-limbed and possessed the special kind of cruelty that comes from being able to breathe underwater while watching others drown. She thought this made her fascinating. These 4 took one look at Maya and decided she was the problem. Day 1, orientation in the main training hall. Commander Vos, a Kralaxian with more scars than social skills, stood before the assembled teams. "You are here," he growled, his translator struggling with his dialect, "because your respective governments believe you can be forged into effective combat units. You will train together, you will fight together, and if you fail together, you will die together. Eventually, probably during the Rift War simulations in month 4. Cheerful guy. He assigned team designations. When Strike Team Delta 7 was called, Krogath literally groaned, out loud. In a room with perfect acoustics. "A human?" he said, not even bothering to lower his voice. "Another one? And a female?" Jackson, desperate for approval, laughed. Actually laughed. "Commander, with respect, Earth gravity is barely 1 g. The rest of us train at 1.4 minimum. She will slow us down." Maya said nothing, just stood there, hands clasped behind her back, face completely neutral. That should have been their first clue. Thessa clicked her beak in that annoying way Ivirans do when they are being condescending. "Perhaps she can carry supplies. Humans are good at carrying things." "Yeah." Zilla bubbled something in her native language that the translators mercifully did not pick up, but her gill slits were fluttering in what I had learned was Aquarian laughter. Commander Voss stared at them for a long, uncomfortable moment. Then he looked at Maya. "Trainee Reeves, do you have anything to say?" "No, sir," she said. Calm, professional, almost bored. "Good. Delta 7, you have the North Training Grounds. Dismissed." I flagged their team in my monitoring system, not because I expected excellence. Understand, I flagged them because this had all the hallmarks of a beautiful disaster, and those make for the best reports. The first week was, well, it was exactly what you would expect. Krogath insisted on leading every exercise, even the ones requiring subtlety instead of charging forward like a drunk cargo hauler. Thessa scouted ahead but rarely bothered reporting back, too busy showing off her aerial superiority. Jackson tried to position himself as second in command, which nobody had asked him to do. Zilla worked well enough, but spent most of her time making comments about limited surface dweller perspectives. And Maya? She did her job. Every single time. No complaints. No drama. During urban combat simulations while the others argued about approach vectors, she would quietly identify sniper positions, structural weaknesses, and optimal retreat routes. When they bothered to listen, which was almost never, her assessments were frighteningly accurate. During endurance runs she finished middle of the pack, which for a 1G worlder running in 1.4G was actually impressive, but Krogath still made a point of lapping her, then flexing his secondary arm muscles while doing so. The breaking point came during week 3. They were running a hostage extraction scenario. Standard stuff. Simulated enemy compound, holographic hostages, live ammunition set to stun. The goal was simple. Get in, secure the targets, get out. Points for speed, stealth and hostage survival. Krogath decided, in his infinite wisdom, that speed meant kicking down the front entrance and charging in. This is a bad idea, Maya said, calmly, clearly, for the recording. Nobody asked you, Jackson shot back. Thessa was already airborne, circling above. The front is heavily defended. We should split up. Attack from multiple angles. We are doing this my way, Krogath announced. Because of course they were. Zilla, at least, hesitated. Krogath, perhaps we should. Are you questioning me? Silence. They went with Krogath's plan. It was a massacre. Not of them, obviously. This was a training scenario, not an actual war crime. But the simulated defenders lit them up like festival fireworks. Krogath made it maybe 10 meters before getting tagged 17 times. The system blared casualty so loudly I heard it from the observation deck. Jackson tried to provide covering fire, got flanked, took a stun round to his center mass that dropped him like a sack of Terran potatoes. Thessa got clipped mid-flight, tumbled into a wall, had to be scraped off by recovery drones. Zilla managed to take out 3 defenders before walking directly into a trap that any first-year cadet would have spotted. Final score, 0 hostages saved. 14 casualties. Time elapsed, 90 seconds. Maya, who had held position outside as the entire plan collapsed, managed to extract herself without getting hit once. Because while everyone else was busy dying gloriously, she had been mapping patrol patterns and firing solutions. The after-action review was spicy. Commander Voss pulled up the footage, let it play in its full embarrassing glory. Delta 7, what went wrong? Krogath, still nursing his bruised ego and several bruised organs, decided the problem was obvious. We were not coordinated. Some team members, and here he stared directly at Maya, did not commit to the assault. My translator actually sputtered. I had to recalibrate it because surely, he did not just blame her for his catastrophic failure. But yes, he did. I suggested an alternative approach, Maya said, her voice still maddeningly calm. You chose not to take it. You suggested hiding like a coward, Jackson added, because apparently loyalty to terrible ideas was his superpower. I suggested not dying in the first 30 seconds. Thessa ruffled her feathers. Boldness wins battles. Caution is for prey species. Oh, this was too good. I was taking notes so fast my tablet started overheating. Commander Voss held up a hand. Trainee Reeves, you survived. The others did not. Why? I remained outside the kill zone, sir. Maintained situational awareness. Waited for an opportunity that never came because everyone else was already down. So you abandoned your team? No, sir. I declined to join them in tactical suicide. The room went very, very quiet. Krogath stood up, all 3 meters of him. You dare? Sit down, Krogarth, Voss said, not even looking at him. His eyes were locked on Maya, trainee Reeves in combat. Sometimes the team must follow a leader's decision even if it is wrong. Unity of action often matters more than perfect tactics. Yes, sir. However, and here the tiniest smile crossed his scarred face, your assessment was correct. This was, as you eloquently put it, tactical suicide. Delta 7 is dismissed. I suggest you figure out how to function as a unit before the next scenario, because next time, the simulation will shoot back harder. They shuffled out, and that is when the real bullying began. See, Krogarth could handle losing. Barely. What he could not handle was being told he lost by someone he had already decided was inferior. The human woman, who had politely declined to march into automatic weapons fire, became his problem to solve. During group physical training, he made sure to position himself where he could accidentally clip her during sprints. Nothing obvious enough to get flagged. Just enough to be a message. During weapons drills, Jackson would consistently provide her with faulty equipment, rifles with dead batteries, sights that were deliberately miscalibrated, again subtle enough to have deniability. Thessa started spreading rumors in the communal areas. Loud conversations about unreliable teammates, about people who could not handle the pressure, about how Earthers always cracked under stress. Zilla was perhaps the worst. She had access to environmental controls for their shared barracks, and took great pleasure in randomly adjusting the temperature, the humidity, the atmospheric composition. Never enough to be dangerous. Just enough to make sleeping difficult. Maya reported none of it. I know. Because I checked. Not a single formal complaint. She just kept showing up, kept performing her duties, kept being aggressively competent despite everything they threw at her. The second scenario came in week 5. This time, wilderness survival and patrol. They were dropped into a simulated hostile environment, given minimal supplies, and told to survive 72 hours while completing reconnaissance objectives. Krogarth took charge again, because of course he did. The pattern was set. He made decisions, everyone else fell in line, and Maya quietly did the actual work of keeping them alive. She identified edible plants, established watch rotations that actually made sense, marked patrol routes that avoided the worst of the environmental hazards, and they ignored everything she said. By hour 40, they were lost, dehydrated, and arguing. By hour 60, Jackson had eaten something that Maya had explicitly identified as toxic and was violently ill. By hour 71, they stumbled into enemy patrol routes. Maya had carefully mapped out and gotten themselves captured. Final score, mission failure, survival failure. One team member requiring actual medical attention because simulated toxins are still real toxins, just less lethal. Maya again had to be recovered separately because she was the only one who had not gotten caught. The after-action review was shorter this time. Delta 7, Commander Voss said, his voice carrying the weight of deep, existential exhaustion, you are the worst performing team in this facility's history. Congratulations. Nobody spoke. Trainee Reeves, once again you survived while your team failed. Care to explain? I followed the survival protocols, sir. I attempted to share information with my team. They chose other priorities. Krogarth exploded. This is ridiculous. She sabotages us, then acts innocent. Commander, I request a transfer. I cannot work with someone actively undermining. Request denied, Voss said flatly. You are Delta 7 until you graduate or wash out. And at your current performance rate, washing out seems far more likely. Figure it out. Dismissed. That night, I was reviewing the day's footage when I noticed something interesting. Maya had gone to the training grounds. Alone. At 0200 hours when everyone else was sleeping. And she was running drills. Not the standard ones. No, she was running modified exercises at 1.8 g, nearly double Earth gravity. The kind of load that should have flattened her into an interesting stain. But she was not just surviving it. She was excelling. I watched her clear obstacle courses, run combat scenarios, perform weapons drills with a precision that would have impressed a Kralaxian veteran. Her face was locked in concentration, sweat pouring down, every movement calculated despite the crushing weight. She trained for 3 hours, then she went back to the barracks, probably got 2 hours of sleep, and showed up for morning formation looking ready to start again. And suddenly, I understood. She was not just dealing with the team that bullied her. She was preparing to replace them. I should have filed a report, should have alerted Commander Voss, should have done something official and by the book. Instead, I grabbed a fresh cup of stimulant drink, opened a new observation file, and titled it Project Deathworld. Because I had a feeling things were about to get very, very interesting. The third major scenario arrived in Week 8, full-scale combat simulation. 2 teams, opposing objectives, live capture or eliminate protocols. Delta 7 was matched against Strike Team Alpha 3, a Kralaxian unit, with enough tournament wins and commendations to fill a small transport ship. Krogarth was thrilled. Finally a chance to prove himself against worthy opponents. Finally a stage where his natural superiority could shine. Finally an opportunity for everything to go magnificently, spectacularly wrong. But that story, my friends, belongs to part 2. And trust me, you do not want to miss what happens next. Week 8. Combat Simulation Arena 12. 2 teams enter, 1 team wins. Everyone learns something about humility. Usually, I arrived early to the observation deck with my recording equipment and what humans call popcorn. Do not ask me where I got it. Let us just say the human supply officer owed me a favor after I did not report his side business selling Earth coffee to cadets at markup rates that would make a Ferengi blush. The arena was a sprawling industrial complex. Multi-level structures, tight corridors, open killing fields, environmental hazards, the works, perfect place for fast, brutal combat. Terrible place for second-guessing or poor coordination. Strike Team Alpha 3 was already assembled in their staging area, 5 Kralaxians, all veterans, all moving with that fluid efficiency that comes from actually training together instead of spending 8 weeks playing blame games. Their leader, Grath, had personally killed a rift beast during border conflicts, with his bare hands, while on fire. He was not someone you wanted to meet in a dark corridor. Delta 7 arrived looking like they had spent the shuttle ride arguing, which, according to transit logs, they absolutely had. Krogath was gesturing aggressively at Maya, while Jackson nodded along like one of those bobblehead toys humans find amusing. Thessa perched on a railing, preening and pointedly ignoring everyone. Zilla was checking her equipment with the kind of focus that suggested she was planning her own exit strategy. Maya stood apart from them, checking her weapon, her face that same neutral mask she had worn for 8 solid weeks. Commander Voss appeared on the main display, his image projected large enough that even Krogath had to look up at him. This is a live combat exercise. Stun rounds only, but they will hurt. Victory conditions are simple. Eliminate the opposing team or capture their objective marker. Your performance here determines whether you advance to Phase 2 training or get recycled back to basic. That got everyone's attention. Getting recycled meant starting over. Months of training, wasted. For some of these cadets, it meant career death. Alpha 3, you are designated as defenders. Hold the central reactor facility. Delta 7, you are attackers. Breach and secure. You have 2 hours. Begin in 60 seconds. The countdown started. I leaned forward, my 4 eyes tracking both team feeds simultaneously. This was either going to be a masterclass in teamwork, or the most beautiful disaster since the Victorian Navy tried to invade a planet they forgot to check for sentient life first. Krogath immediately started barking orders. Standard breach formation. Jackson, you are on point. Thessa, aerial reconnaissance. Zilla, secure our flanks. The human, he paused like saying her name might poison him, provides rear support. Rear support. Also known as stay out of the way while the real warriors work. Maya said nothing. Just checked her weapon one more time and fell into position. The buzzer sounded. Alpha 3 immediately dispersed to defensive positions with practiced efficiency. Grath positioned himself at the central choke point, his team covering approaches with overlapping fields of fire. Beautiful setup. Professional. Lethal. Delta 7 charged forward like enthusiastic amateurs at their first combat sim. They made it approximately 40 meters before running face first into a kill zone. Jackson, on point, triggered a proximity sensor. Automated turrets dropped from the ceiling. Stun rounds filled the corridor with enough electrical discharge to power a small station. He went down immediately, twitching and making sounds that my translator refused to process. Krogath roared and charged forward, because apparently his solution to being shot was to get shot faster. He took 6, 7, 8 rounds before his nervous system finally agreed with basic physics and shut down. Thessa tried to fly over the turrets, got tagged mid-flight by a defender she had not spotted, and crashed into a support beam hard enough that medical drones started automatically deploying. Zilla, to her credit, actually retreated, made it back to cover, survived the initial contact. Maya had never entered the kill zone at all. While everyone else was discovering what high-velocity stun rounds feel like, she had stopped at the corridor entrance, pulled out a scanner, and started mapping the defensive positions. "Trainee Reeves," Commander Voss's voice came through the comms. "Your team is down. Do you require extraction?" She looked at the twitching bodies of her teammates, then at her scanner, then back at the arena. "Negative, sir. Requesting permission to continue solo." Silence on the command channel. I could practically hear Voss's thought process. This was unprecedented. Teams were not supposed to operate solo. The entire point of the exercise was unit cohesion. But then again, Delta 7 had shown all the unit cohesion of a bag of angry cats. "Permission granted," Voss said slowly. 2-hour time limit still applies. Clock is running. Maya nodded once, then did something I did not expect. She smiled. Not a big smile. Not some dramatic villain moment. Just a small, quiet smile that suggested she had been waiting for this exact scenario for 8 solid weeks. Then she turned off her transponder, disappeared into the facility's maintenance tunnels, and vanished from the primary tracking systems. "Where did she go?" Voss demanded, his voice sharp with concern. I checked my secondary feeds, the ones monitoring environmental systems and backup sensors. "She is in the sub-level, sir, using maintenance access corridors that are technically off-limits." "Are those corridors even mapped in her combat database?" "No, sir. She would have had to memorize the facility blueprints independently. And when would she have had time to do that?" I pulled up my personal observation logs, the ones showing Maya training alone at 0200 hours, running drills at crushing gravity, and apparently studying complex structural schematics when everyone else was sleeping. "She made time, sir." Voss made a sound that might have been respect or indigestion. "Hard to tell with Kralaxians." Meanwhile, Alpha 3 was regrouping. They had heard the initial contact, knew Delta 7 had been essentially eliminated, and were now trying to figure out where the remaining attacker was. Grath pulled his team into a tighter defensive formation around the reactor facility objective. "One human, alone, probably scared and retreating. Stay alert, but do not overcommit. Let her come to us." "Oh, Grath, you magnificent idiot." Maya was not retreating. Maya was hunting. She emerged from a maintenance shaft directly behind Alpha 3's rear guard. A single Kralaxian named Vex, who had been assigned the boring job of watching their backs because surely one tiny human was not a threat. Maya dropped on him from above, wrapped her legs around his neck in a move I later learned humans call a triangle choke, and applied pressure until his superior Kralaxian physiology decided consciousness was optional. She caught his body before it hit the ground, lowered it silently, took his spare ammunition. 4 defenders left. She moved through the facility like something from a Terran Predator documentary. I have seen Kralaxian assassins, with less grace. She used shadows, used sound discipline, used every centimeter of cover available. The next defender, Kresh, was monitoring a side corridor when Maya appeared behind him. Not dramatically, not with some battle cry. She just appeared, put her stun weapon against the base of his skull, and fired. He dropped. 3 defenders left. By now Alpha 3 realized something was wrong. 2 team members not responding. No contact. No sounds of combat. "Spread out," Grath ordered. "Find her." Splitting up. Classic mistake. Maya did not even have to move. She just waited as they came to her. Felice Hall came through her corridor first, weapon ready, scanning carefully. He was good, professional, alert. Not alert enough. Maya had positioned herself above the doorframe, pressed flat against the ceiling support beams in the 1.4G environment that should have made that position impossible to hold. She dropped on Thor like gravity suddenly remembered to show up for work. Her knees hit his shoulders, driving him down while she put 3 stun rounds into his back. 2 defenders left. I was now recording everything at maximum resolution because this was going into the training archives forever. The remaining 2 defenders, Graf and Mira, had pulled back to the objective room itself. Smart move. Defensible position. Limited approaches. Except Maya did not use the approaches. She went through the wall. Literally. She planted breaching charges on a structural weak point, detonated them, and came through the resulting hole while both defenders were still processing what just happened. Mira turned, brought her weapon up, got off one shot that went wide. Maya was already inside her guard. Close quarters. Too close for rifles? She swept Mira's legs, followed her down, and delivered a stun round at contact range. 1 defender left. Graf. The arena went quiet except for the hum of machinery and the labored breathing of 2 combatants sizing each other up. Graf was bigger, stronger, more experienced, had redundant organ systems that let him fight through damage that would drop most species. Maya was exhausted, operating at gravity loads she was not designed for, and had been ostracized by her own team for 2 months. Impressive, Graf said, his translator carrying genuine respect. For a human. But this ends now. Maya said nothing, just shifted her stance, weight balanced, weapon ready. They moved simultaneously. What followed was 7 seconds of the most technically proficient close-quarters combat I have ever witnessed. Graf had reach and power. Maya had speed and precision. He tried to grab her. She slipped the grip. She tried to shoot. He deflected the barrel. They traded positions, neither gaining advantage, both looking for openings. Then Maya did something unexpected. She stopped trying to fight him directly, and instead targeted his environment. She shot the support beam above him. Not to hit him, to change his footing. The beam cracked, shifted, and Graf instinctively looked up. Basic threat assessment. Perfectly reasonable. Also perfectly fatal. In that half-second of distraction, Maya planted 2 rounds in his chest and 1 in his knee. His redundant nervous system meant he stayed conscious longer than most species, long enough to watch her pick up the objective marker. Well fought, he managed, before his systems finally surrendered to the stun effect. Mission complete. Time elapsed. 43 minutes. The arena fell silent. Then the observation deck erupted in noise. Instructors shouting, analysts scrambling. Commander Voss staring at the displays like they had personally offended his ancestors. I just sat there, eating my contraband popcorn, watching the replay footage. Maya extracted herself from the facility, emerging into the staging area where her teammates were being treated by medical drones. Krogath was conscious now, looking at her with an expression I had never seen on a Vixorian face before. It took me a moment to identify it. Fear. You, he started, then stopped. Words failed him. Jackson said nothing, just stared. Thessa's feathers were completely flat against her body. Submission posture. Zilla had gone very, very still. Prey behavior. Commander Voss appeared in person, walking into the staging area with his command staff. The entire training facility had gone quiet. This was not normal procedure. Commanders did not personally show up to debrief routine exercises. Trainee Reeves, he said, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent space. That was the single most effective solo combat performance this facility has recorded in 23 years of operation. Maya stood at attention. Thank you, sir. It was also a complete violation of team-based combat doctrine. Yes, sir. You operated independently. You ignored standard approaches. You used unauthorized access routes. Yes, sir. Voss stepped closer, and you succeeded where your team failed. Completely. Decisively. in less than an hour. Maya said nothing. Tell me, Trainee Reeves, why did you not share these tactics with your team? Why did you not teach them what you clearly know? For the first time in 8 weeks, something flickered across Maya's face. Not anger, not satisfaction. Something colder. I tried, sir, for 2 months. They chose not to listen. Voss looked at Kruger and the others. Is this true? Silence. Damning, absolute silence. I see. Voss turned back to Maya. The purpose of this facility is to build cohesive combat units, teams that trust each other, fight for each other. What you have demonstrated today is exceptional individual skill, but catastrophic team dynamics. He paused, and I swear I saw the hint of a smile. Therefore, Strike Team Delta 7 is hereby disbanded. Krogath, Jackson Maya, Thessa Quill, Zilla, you are being reassigned to remedial team integration training. You will learn to function as part of a unit, or you will wash out. Dismissed. They stumbled away, broken in ways that had nothing to do with stun rounds. Force turned back to Maya. Trainee Reeves, you present an interesting problem. Your individual capabilities are extraordinary. Your team performance is non-existent. Recommendations. Maya considered this. Permission to continue solo training, sir. If team integration is impossible, perhaps independent operations would better suit my skill set. There are no solo operators in the Galactic Combat Institute. Then perhaps there should be, sir. The silence stretched out. Every instructor, every observer, every cadet within earshot was holding their breath. Finally, Voss nodded. Approved. On a trial basis, you will continue advanced training as an independent operative. If you succeed, you will pioneer a new operational doctrine. If you fail, he shrugged, well, at least you will fail alone. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Dismissed. Maya walked away, back straight, showing no signs of the exhaustion she must have been feeling. I shut down my recording equipment, compiled my report, and sat there for a long moment. 17 years I had been observing combat training. 17 years of teams, units, squadrons, all working together in various degrees of effectiveness. And now I had just watched the birth of something new. A human, from a Class 12 Deathworld, who had been bullied, ostracized and dismissed by her own team, who had responded not with complaints or resignation, but by becoming so devastatingly competent that she no longer needed them. The other instructors were already arguing about whether this was good precedent or dangerous deviation from doctrine, whether individual excellence should be celebrated or suppressed in favor of unit cohesion. I just filed my report with a single recommendation. Do not underestimate humans, especially the quiet ones, especially when you make them angry, because by the time you realize your mistake, they will have already replaced you. 3 months later I heard through facility gossip that Krogath had washed out, could not function in a team after his confidence got shattered by a 1.7-meter human woman. Jackson transferred to logistics. Safer there. Thessa returned to her homeworld, took a ground-based position, stopped flying. Zilla finished training but never spoke about Delta 7, ever. And Maya, she graduated top of her class, founded the Institute's first solo operative program. Last I heard she was running Black Ops missions in contested space, taking assignments that full teams would not touch. They say she still trains alone at 0-200 hours, still runs drills at gravities that should not be survivable, still smiles that small quiet smile when someone underestimates her. I have learned many things in my 17 years as a tactical observer, about combat, about strategy, about the infinite varieties of species that make up our galaxy. But the most important lesson I learned from Maya Reeves is this: humans are not dangerous because of their Deathworld biology, not because of their gravity tolerance or their predator instincts or their ridiculous endurance. Humans are dangerous because when you hurt them, when you dismiss them, when you push them down and tell them they are not good enough, they do not break. They train. They adapt. They become exactly strong enough to not need you anymore. And then, if you are very lucky, they simply walk away. If you are unlucky, well, let us just say there is a reason Maya trains alone now. because there is no one left who can keep up.